Coalition, Nadeko, former secretary of Afenifere. He is the convener, Coalition of Democratic Reforms, CODA. It's my pleasure to welcome on today's edition of Rumbles, Mr. Ayo Opadokun. You're welcome, sir.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Viewers, good day.
Let me start this interview by asking you to look at the June 12 mandate for us, and from the point of view of someone who fought even from the trenches for the actualization of.
Fundamentally represents till today a landmark achievement of the Nigerian people, because it was a pan-Nigerian mandate that was given to Chief M.K. Abiola, whose victory was certain because we received all the results from all the jobbed after 16 states have been announced. But the military jackboot led by President Ibrahim Babangida decided to annul that election by exhibiting their complete disregard and contempt for the popular will of the Nigerian people as expressed in that election to be utilized. What Nigerian proposed to do was to bury the dubious national divides, got him killed out of Nigeria. If the result of that election was not annulled, that country belong to some people as owners, while others are bystanders, onlookers on the sideline. And it is the resultant consequences from quarters of the country. It is the reason deter for the Egbesu emergence in the South-South, eventually the Niger Delta Avengers. You talk about IPOB, the MASOB, the Middle Belt Youth Forum, the OPC. That, again, is that because June 12 was disannulled by a motley crowd of military politicians, it had done incalculable damage to the corporate existence of Nigeria, because the current national mistrust had been raging. In fact, with violence attached to some of those agitations, and given the current pronouncement by the Arewa Youth Forum that had action of the Ohanes Ndigbo and the likes, are still substratum of the fallout of the annulment of that freely given, freest, fairest.
The eventful moments of that period.
Let me start then by talking about the event preceding June 12 election. How did we arrive at that? General Babangida, in a palace coup, overthrew his boss, General Muhammadu Buhari. Buhari's dictatorship, and presented himself as a lover of freedom and liberty of the people. He packaged a political bureau that was to. By 1988, he set up a Constituent Assembly and asked Nigerians to go and form political parties. While he put us on a wild good political parties of our associates, with whom we shared same philosophy, same ideology, same views, same perspectives on how to run this and the likes free of charge. While Babangida was using us as guinea pigs, we never knew until later on that at the same time he had sent some of his trusted kitchen cabinet young ones, despots, military dictators and despots, were capable of remaining in offices while choreographing facade of election to elect so-called prime ministers that will always be at the back. One of them, Colonel Tony Inyam, who eventually became the senior military officer of the Oka coup attempt. So, from day one, he never is SDP a little to the left, NRC a little to the right. When it is to fashion what they call option A4, and purposes was for this purpose simply. You wanted to be a Nigerian president under the NRC SDP, you go and contest in your ward. If there are other people who are contesting within your ward, if there are 2, 3 with other presidential aspirants who emerge as the winner from the different ward in that local government, so then there will emerge a presidential aspirant from that the local government. Then all the ones from all local governments will converge at. Then the ones from all the states will converge at the national convention of the party to elect the presidential candidate of that party. That was what happened. And the NRC one held in Port Harcourt. MKO emerged, TOFA emerged in NRC. And then the truth of the matter was that the last 2 months to that election, series of events were taking place that clearly demonstrated to hold. But because they've deceived themselves so much, the intelligence reports that he was given was that MK Abiola couldn't have been able to win, lost, then he will be much more loyal, much more subservient to him, to be much more available for him to be used. As for Tofa had been their man, whom they had enough intelligence report. That was the circumstance. His own kitchen cabinet, the likes of David Mark, what are their names? Tony Akilu, and the likes. They didn't want that election to. The strong position of the United States of America, along with Western allies, and the creative, persistent activities of the non-government organization in Nigeria, those of us, the activists here, who are Nigeria public fund that have been wasted. The one that was voted for the construction of polling unit, that was awarded. It was not constructed at all. But God, the Almighty, who remained on the throne, made sure that rain did not fall in any state of the country. So that election held because Nigerians were decided to see the back of the military. Clement Akangbo, one of these renegades who served the military, to a pulpit lawyer in his chamber who had become a judge, one woman, to give a ruling at 9 p.m. in the night that election should no more hold. That election should no more hold. But there have been decrees with the court pronouncement. The election will hold on that particular day. So the election held. But while the result was being announced, curiously, it was Clement Akpangbo that went continuation of the announcement of the result after the 16 state election result had been announced. Our distinguished colleagues and friends, Buhari Bello, who was the director of legal services to INEC, it is for Fedeco then, when it was announced that the Electoral Commission had been disbanded. That was what happened.
If that mandate had been actualized, what difference would it have made?
For example, they signed treaty with the King Dosumu of Lagos. They signed treaty with Atahiru Jega or Sokoto. That was the kind of thing that happened. For reasons of their own economic and political interest, they forced us through the force of arms to a place called Nigeria. 2, you will remember that it was just about 5 years after they left that the military struck. The politicians in the military uniform, they struck. January 15, the rule by which they have governed us had been through decrees. So from the time of the amalgamation in 1914 to 1960, our so-called constitutional arrangement had been directed, put the imprimatur, their designation on all the so-called military arrangements, perhaps with some measure of facade of civilian involvement in them. Nigeria to decide the basic national question, which one of the same coin, two of like a coin. First, do you want to belong to a place called Nigeria? That decision had not been made. The question had not been put to our people with various ethnic groups in Nigeria. Perhaps the response may be yes, in majority. The second question that follows is, if we're going to sit down, be together, it will be on what terms? What will be the rule of engagement? It will give and take. They will resolve and come up with some consensus. It should be on that basis that we can write our own indigenous constitution called autochthonous constitution, juggernauts, and that's what we have. So, because they are not that freest and fairest credible election, we remain divided. One of the retired Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Dairu, what it was in 1960, when the so-called political independence was granted to Nigeria, and that it was time for Nigeria to sit down to negotiate our mutual coexistence. Even when we 5 years ago, Nigerians have not been given the privilege of democratic choice as to whether or not they want to be part of this place called Nigeria. And so, we have not been given the privilege to write our own indigenous constitution. Was brought into life by Decree 24 of 1999. People like me have difficulty in identifying with such a thing because such a constitution has minoritized me permanently. And permanent stock of Oyo Yoruba, we are from Ofa to Iwo. We are all Ibono people. of the traditional headquarters of Ibolo people. And then the conspiracy of Lord Lugard at the full, I'll be told that I'm a Yoruba man. So I have no part there. And that's the recent one, the last one of that was when Chief Awoniyi from Kaba wanted to be chairman of the PDP. Huh? General Obasanjo, Yoruba man, to take over as chairman of the party. Now, if they're equally contesting for anything in the south here, in the southwest, and I'm sure I'll be told that I'm from the north. So through this conspiracy. So I cannot throw red carpet for such a constitution. It does not represent me.
Still on June 12th, sir, how do you respond to the allegations made against you and other Yoruba leaders by Al Mustafa regarding knowing who killed Chief Abiola and the fact that you and other Afenifere leaders were compromised to
all circumstances, and there was no basis for such allegations. Al Mustafa is a pathological liar who is seeking for attention, which he does not deserve. He's busy misusing the political space in the hands of Abacha to eliminate quite a number of our colleagues and comrades. This business allegation was not the first of its type. And when I returned from the US, and I just returned from the US, and I interacted with the media, and then I castigated him. Mustafa, 2 days thereafter, viewers can see, this was August the 9th, 2011. Mustafa recanted. Guardian was not the only newspaper that carried that story. This was Compass. What's wrong with the fellow? You can see the reaction of the first child of the late distinguished Attorney General of the Federation, Chief Bola Ige, Sister Funsho, of Chief Adebanjo, clearly well worded, that is trying now to blackmail the Yoruba race. Al Mustafa is just seeking for attention. If he was such a lover of Abiola, and he was the coordinator, the chief executive of the task force, the strike force, a number of our eminent Nigerians and activists on this street in Lagos. It does not lie in his mouth to be seeking for attention and to be seeking for Nigeria, and who laid down their lives for the restoration of the mandate of Abiola to call their credibility into question. That's what he had attempted to do. And since he did this last one, I've interacted with the media to deny the baseless allegation. When you were busy being prosecuted for the murder of Kudirat, how did the matter of going to Abacha made of him? Immediately his boss died, because junior officer to his immediate what he said he was recording. What he showed people at Lagos High Court here was something, whatever it is, it must have been one person with a telephone, with his telephone that has camera, that recording now. I'm going into the indicating.
Did you come out laughing?
Whatever it is, I don't know what did they mean by laughing. He said, when we were going in, we were frowning. when we were coming out, we were laughing. What kind of stupid charade is that? Is that one?
What actually happened at that meeting?
We were invited by platforms, critical platforms in Nigeria, as to the way forward. And 5 of us represented Nadeco. We were led by Senator Abraham Adesanya. It included Senators Francis Okpozo. It included Chief Bola Ige. We went there with a proposal that Chief M.K. Abiola, the winner of June 12, 1993 election, should be made to form a government of national unity, whose first business, we discussed that at length. And General Absalami, in his gentle manner, reacted by saying to us he was still busy consulting with other groups. He had heard us. But then he turned to that overran his immediate reaction to our suggestion, because Maga Igwe was saying what that all that Nigerians wanted was quickly the military, which was the convocation of a representative assembly of the Nigerian people, where we will deal with what are summed up as the national question. So that was what happened at that meeting. And from that place, we returned to the airport of any money from anybody. So he was just blatantly lying. And since he had resolved not to be, he said that 6 years ago. He didn't say it 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 year ago until this year. Maybe now running around with Nwazurike of Masob. He had decided not to utilize the opportunity of the June 12 again to try an attempt to paint Ayo Opadokun as a resolve to serve humanity, to make life better for the ordinary man. That's our commitment. That's why we surrender our lives to confront full-blown military, violent one like Abacha. It was not a tea party. I could be detained. I could suffer so many a variety of shame, of deprivation. I insisted on staying here until I was arrested and detained. 24 calendar month first, and when I was rearrested, I was in Ikoyi prison when Abacha died. And so it was a lie again that it was immediately after Abiola died. That was when we went to that information came through. It was even dangerous for us 3 or 4 weeks or more, 1 month thereafter. So it was not true.
If you're just joining us, our guest on today's edition of Rumbles is Mr. Ayo Opadokun. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. It's still Rumbles on Galaxy Television, and our guest is still Mr. Ayo Opadokun. So just before the break, we were talking about June 12th, and I'd like to ask you, what does government need to do to immortalize the late M.K. Abiola?
It has been our position from day one, and all that needed to be done by the Nigerian Constitution with respect to past presidents ought to be done for him. Nigerian state ought to immortalize him in a manner that will be long-lasting and eternal. Unfortunately, Olusegun Obasanjo remained the greatest ingrate for 8 years of his administration. He pretended as if Abiola never mattered. And without Abiola's martyrdom, without this great sacrifice that we made, the sacrifice, their lives for restoration of democracy, he will not be. And that's why I've instructed my solicitors to sue Al-Mustafa for libel. For once, I cannot allow him to have who are not into the free reign of their calculation, because almost everyone has a price in the country. My Bible tells me that godliness and content in acquisition which they worship. So I've asked my solicitor to file action against him.
Let me ask you to look at Nigeria for us and tell us what your thoughts are in terms of the state of the nation.
That's a big question. When coalition Nadeko, there were two main objectives. One was the objective reality, necessity for the convocation of the currently warped, skewed, lopsided national structure could be straightened. Second was the restoration of the mandate of MKO Abiola's victory. Emerge in public office, in political offices, will be imbued with the sense of patriotism, so much that the policy they will enact. Unfortunately, the first 16 years were years of the locust. What the Nigerian state offers today in terms of social services, regrettably, not a country that for over 25 years had exported 2 million barrels of crude oil every day at an average price of $100 per barrel. If you know the quantum of such money that Nigeria, latest one from the World Bank and UNDP, we are grouped among the 10 poorest nations of the world. In fact, we are grouped among the war-ravaged areas. Somalia. What Nigeria offers today as education is a deception. Our people, they know it. In terms of medical services, we are terribly serviced. Not is the medical pilgrimage is now to India and to the human and material endowment of Nigeria. That's not the situation we should find ourselves. And for a country that was the 8th largest exporter of crude oil, even to America, for several years, almost our universities are not even, none of them is among the first 1,000 in the world. What is it that we're gotten? So, all the hopes and aspirations that we as governed by President Muhammadu Buhari is a mixture of hopes and the contrary. Of deprivation, the level of poverty, the level of economic misery that our people were when President Buhari took over. The country had been run down totally. All markets that was about 110 went down to even up to 28 or 29. What magic were our people? Even though they met when they got into office, was not helpful. And it was at the same time because someone from the Niger Delta area was defeated in office. There was the emergence of the Niger Delta Avengers who broke all the parties in that regard. So it collapsed any or the what could regard as misjudgment, terrible establishing the Independent Power Project, IPP project. All of them were concentrated on the supply of gas from Niger Delta areas. And when the Niger Delta Avengers broke all the power supply, totally went down, and then we got into total darkness. Some people, without being appreciative of the objective reality of the situation, blame Buhari for non-performance. That's in my so, but I am till tomorrow in agreement with Buhari on his commitment to fight corruption, despite the hiccups. That's a president to come out openly that the Nigerian judiciary was like in opposition to his campaign against corruption. That tells a big story. And what have you found? The Nigerian judiciary submitted the Nigerian judiciary for them to make their life better than what it is today. It is unfortunate that we've gotten as that. Since the advent of the media will be mistaken, it's a wrong understanding of the metrics of political governance in anywhere in the world, particularly the type that overran Nigeria. That one of them was the first president, General Obasanjo. In that 8 years, he changed the party chairman almost 4 or 5 times. Among them again were military chairman, PDP chairman. I think it's an Colonel Amadou Ali. At the same time, he made Bode George, the Naval man, National Deputy Chairman South. Not directly in office. It is their surrogates, their acolytes, their sympathizers, their loyalists who are sponsored. We're still within their grip. Not until we do what the last day, each time the military was forced to go back to the barracks, they went on their own terms. And that is our undoing.
How do you like it? Simple and colorful, free and sexy, or basic and trendy? Then watch out. Nollywood Worldwide Entertainment, in conjunction with Galaxy Television, presents the Nigerian television fashion show, Sizzling Summer Wears on the runway. Host if a 3-in-1 and Galaxy Television's OAP Yvonne. Comedy by MC Olympia Baba and MC Remote. Music by Juma B.
Hello Africa, your boy is back again.
Tunde Fatunde.
Awashala Lorita. We control all the time. We living in the
Are Hall, Kakanfo Inn, number 1, Neola Street off